Glory be to God. It's November 15th, 2023. I wanted to put this video out before you continue to watch the video that you're watching right now. The videos that you're about to witness is past videos that I'm just now releasing to everyone. This was part of my purpose, part of God's will, to expose the enemy, because that's what the Bible tells us to do, to expose the enemy. This is a learning video. The videos that I put out is not to disrespect my wife. It's not to embarrass her, because I love my wife. I'm in love with my wife. I've been through this journey of spiritual warfare for a reason. And I hope everybody looks at these videos with a spiritual eye and a spiritual mind. And if you don't know the Word of God, get into it, read it, have a better understanding, and then come back and look at these videos. My videos, they all will have dates on the videos, so you can watch them in order. It's a reason why you have to watch them in order. You're going to see me grow in these videos. You're going to see how God maneuvered and changed things in my life in these videos. These videos is for everybody out there that may be going through the same thing I'm going through, but don't have no answers. Well, in these videos, I'm going to show you what spiritual warfare looks like. I'm going to show you how to fight and know the strategies of the enemy, like the Bible tells us. Why they do what they do. Trust me, I searched all over YouTube for the last 8 years, and I haven't came across nobody that's really had video evidence of demonic demons controlling people that they love, or somebody explaining through their experience on live of what just took place and why it's happening. I need y'all to go back and watch my testimony series so you can have a better understanding of who I am, and watch these videos in order. I will put the dates on them, and my thumbnails will be color coordinated for the years from the time I started until today, and what changed and how did it change, because it's different type of demons that control, and they all do something different, and I'm gonna break every single one of them down on how they do and what you have to do to fight it based off God's word. I thank y'all. I love y'all. And just know I did this for y'all. I did this for y'all. I love y'all. I don't even know y'all, but I love y'all. I love it. I love each and every one of y'all, because this was bigger than me. It was bigger than me. It was bigger than my wife. It was for y'all. This is what God wanted me to do. Enjoy the video. Glory be to God. It's December 2nd, 2022. Part 3 of my testimony. So, where I left off previously was, at a young age, I witnessed my mom going to jail and, having to stay home and watch my sister while my dad went to work until my mom came out. I know I said maybe a month or two. I don't know, maybe it felt like a month or two. It could have been shorter than that. It could have been a week, 2 weeks, whatever it was. I just know I didn't go to school. I lived a hard life. A lot of it was the enemy trying to already damage me at a young age. Because like I said, the enemy don't live in time and space. We do. We age. The enemy don't age. Right? Demons don't age. They don't. So they'll plot something that could transpire years down the line. If, for example, like, let's say, for anybody that was molested, right, by an aunt, an uncle, a friend, it could damage you, that it opens the door to you being okay with liking the same sex, right? Or that first cigarette you smoked at 12 and drunk that can of beer, or you got drunk, right? It will lead to harder drugs. Or maybe you've been smoking your whole life and now it just caught up with you, and your lungs is going out on you, and now you're struggling. That's not of God. That's of the enemy. So, those are just some examples right there. Let me pause this video real quick. Okay. Sorry, people. I had to pray. So, I lived a life at this time in my life all the way up to the 4th grade, where I just moved around from motel to motel, never apartments, just motel to motel, living in different cities. That was hard. I spoke about that. I was the child that would go with my mom and we'll go down to the church and get some free food, free groceries. Even though my dad had a good job, we'll go down there and get free groceries. It was always a good time, because that was a time where, I hope I get a bag of groceries with some Fruity Pebbles in it. You know what I'm saying? Or some Cocoa Pebbles, or, the cereals that your parents didn't really buy because it was either too small or they was too expensive at the time. Probably at that time they was, probably $1.89 a box or $2 a box or whatever. But, that formed me to see other people that was really struggling. You know what I'm saying? Um, I grew up, like I said, my parents was crack addicts. I remember watching my parents smoke crack in front of me. You know, I done seen my auntie smoke crack in front of me. I done seen the paranoia that my mom and my dad and my aunts and my uncles did from crack. Um, it's one of the reasons why I stayed away from drugs. Don't get me wrong, did I experiment with weed for a short time? Yes, I did. Maybe for about like a year. Not even a year. It was just an off and on thing when I was around my cousins that smoked weed in Portland. Then I came down and, you know, my sisters would be smoking weed. I might take a puff. And that was it. But it was never something that I wanted to do. It was never my go-to. It was never like, oh, I was doing this for about a year and 2 years and then I finally got off. No, I don't even know how to roll it. I never rolled anything. Let me say that. Like I said, I'll take a couple puffs and that was it. I guess it seemed like I was cool. You know, but drugs never been my avenue. Alcohol never been my avenue. Did I drink? Yes, I did drink. You know, go to a club or a lounge. I'll get me a drink, maybe 2, maybe 3 when I was young. Just doing stuff that you did when you was 21 years old. You know. But like I said, I watched my parents do drugs in front of me. I watched my mom and my dad. You know, I watched my dad be abusive to my mom. I watched my mom. I would go with her sometime to go panhandle for her to get some drugs. You know, and she'll give me like a Hostess cake or something that I wanted. It was always, I'm gonna get you what you want too, you know. So what do you want? You know, and I'm 6, 7 years old and I'm just with my mom. You know, that she went to go panhandle to get drugs. You know, because from me hearing, my dad would get paid on Friday and he'll give us, you know, he'll give me $5, give my sister a couple quarters. She gets something from the ice cream truck. I done went to the local liquor store or 7-Eleven and go play Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter. This is that around that time, you know. And they'll just get us up out the house so they could do what they wanted to do. You know, it was days being in the fourth and 5th grade when we finally did settle into an apartment, and I was going to the same elementary school for 2 years, and you know, at that time, like I said, my best friends was the dope man's kids. And, you know, I would have my friends say, I seen your mom in front of 7-Eleven or whatever panhandling, you know, and asking for change. They didn't say panhandling, but they'd be like, she was asking for change, you know, and that was embarrassing, but it was what it is, what it is, you know. And I remember my parents would let us be outside until 12 o'clock at night in the front of our apartment. It was a small unit. It was only 4 units, but, you know, just for them to do what they was doing in the house, you know. And, you know, my dad would come home, get paid, send my mom out to go get the drugs. She'd come back. He'd give us $5. You know, they order they got some McDonald's or something. So we, you know, as a child, you like, shoot, this is cool. Like, okay, I knew what they was doing. I knew drugs was bad. You know, I had DARE programs and, You know, I knew drugs was bad. Um, and but like I said, I was able to be outside. I was able to play video games. I was spending the night at my friend's house, and we playing Super Mario Brothers World or whatever, and eating pizza. And we was just having a cool time. Those was good times, but like I said, the enemy was already out there trying to expose me to drugs. Like I said, the more he tried to expose me, the more he tried to get me curious. You know, now, like I said, I had two uncles die because of drugs. Not old. I had one OD. Another one got shot copping some drugs and died. And one was on drugs and was high and got shot trying to defend his son with his child's mom. So I didn't have no uncles growing up. I didn't have no uncles. All my uncles that I did have lived in Portland. I lived in California. So, and you know, only time I really seen them is if they came down to visit my dad, and or you know, maybe a phone call here and there. But I was with my dad. You know what I'm saying? I was involved, you know, I was being recruited into a gang. You know, I was living in the hoods. But they knew I was not about that gang life, not because I was a punk or anything. They just knew I loved sports. Sports is what kept my mind sane at a young age. Watching sports, playing sports, video game sports. It was always sports that kept me focused and kept me away from drugs and gang violence and stuff like that. It was always sports. Was I good to go play D1 or anything? Maybe. But I didn't have the work ethic. And at that time, you know, in high school, I was moving around. I was going from high school to high school and trying to find a better situation, but I ain't got there yet. So, you know, there'll be times where my mom, now she would go to jail and be gone for about 2 months. And now I'm older. You know, I'm in middle school. And, you know, my generation, we just built different than the generation now. If we would be able to be cool on our own in the house for a week. You know what I'm saying? Without really seeing your parent. Like, we would know to cook and clean and brush our teeth, put our clothes on, sort of like Home Alone, right? Early 90s, that's how he was what? About 11 years old? That was normal. Like, he didn't panic because his mom and dad was gone. These kids nowadays will panic. But that's here and there. I'm trying to make these a little short. Just give you a rundown on how I lived and stuff. So now my mom would be gone and going to jail for about 2 months for whatever reason. And, you know, I would have to stay home. And my aunt would come over and check on us, you know, every other day or something like that. And I would watch my sisters. I would stay home. They would go to school. And I would take one to school. My little sister at the time, she was still a child, like a baby, like 4 or 5. And I would stay home with her. My other sister would go to school. You know, she was old enough to get on the school bus and come home. Let me see, she had to be, I'm in middle school, so I'm like 12, so she was like 10, you know, 5th grade or whatever, in school. my teenage years, like I was living in Long Beach during my middle school years up to 8th grade. And then we moved to, at this time, my mom had a stroke. And, I guess my dad made arrangements with my aunt. And I ended up moving. Me and my sisters ended up staying with my aunt in the IE. So, my 9th grade year, I went to high school with my older cousin. I started school late, so we're a year apart, but he was 2 grades in front of me. So when he was a junior, I was a freshman, which I should have been a sophomore because of my family moving and everything. And like I said, my mom had a stroke. My dad, he was just made an arrangement with my aunt. He did what he did. I guess he lost his job, but then he started a new job, and I think he was just tired, with my mom and him, and when my mom had her stroke, I don't think they was together. I don't know when. That's cloudy right there. That part right there is cloudy. And I went to high school, and after high school, during high school, I get drunk with my friend, and we'll sit up on the patio and drink, and now sex is involved. I'm having sex, I was 18. I was the 18-year-old that was a senior. I was 18. I remember I met this woman. She was 30, and me and her would have sex. That woman taught me a lot, and sexually, and she was married, right? So, but she, I guess, was getting a divorce, or was in the middle of getting a divorce or whatever. But that's me having sex with a married woman committing adultery, right? Went through my high school years. My mom was okay. She wasn't paralyzed on one side or anything. She was back to herself, but she still was on drugs. You know what I'm saying? And, it was just hard, man. My mom would sell. See, I had the type of mom, going backwards, like when I was in middle school, my dad buy us bikes for Christmas. Before the first of the year, the bikes is gone. She done sold them. I watched my mom sell my little sister's diapers, and then reuse diapers, pee diapers, and dry them out, and use them again. Because she done sold off my little sister's diapers. I seen, she sold video games and video cartridges and stuff like that, and, take the rent money and be gone. My mom would go on binges where she'll be gone for about 2-3 months. Nobody don't know where she's at. She done took the rent money and was gone. The drugs just took over. That demon took over. And she'll be gone for a couple months. My dad come home, he'll drive around looking for her to where all the dope spots was, and she'll be gone. You know, my sisters, I don't know if they really, like, they knew what was going, but they don't think they knew. This is like in my middle school years, living in Long Beach. Mom would be gone for about a month or two. Dad go to work. You know, I had to watch my sisters. I go to school every once in a while. Sometimes my younger sister would go to my aunt's house, and you know, me and my other sister would be there, and you know, I'll walk her to her bus stop, and then I'll go to my bus stop, and I'll go to school, and then you know, I'll come home and make sure the house was clean, and you know, then my dad would come home and he'll probably make something to eat, or he brings something home to eat. Those was hard times, man. Those was hard times. I'm trying not to cry, man, because making these videos is not easy. I'm bringing up a whole lot of hard stuff I had to deal with as a child and as a teenager. But I had to add that because I forgot about that. You know, my mom taking my dad's car, and man, the enemy does the same thing. Like, if you watch my videos, right, my wife will hide our cars, or she'll leave. For the first, once we got married, it was I'm gonna get there, people. I'm gonna get there, and I know I probably spoke about it in some of these videos of her leaving every week to her mom's house or to a family member's house, and did not tell me where she was at and where she was going. My dad had to go through the same thing, but it was a little bit different. My mom would literally be gone for about a month or two on a dope binge and took the rent money or whatever. So that's why I said my dad just got tired of living that type of lifestyle, you know, back and forth. So now fast forward up again, you know, I'm graduating high school. My mom, like my junior year and senior year, my mom was able to get an apartment in the IE, because we was living with my aunt when she got out the hospital from her stroke, and we was living with my aunt for about 2 years, and then, you know, you can't stay with people too long, you know, even though they sisters, you know. I stayed with my grandparents. We stayed with my grandparents before high school. When we left, matter of fact, when we left Long Beach and my mom, we went up to, that's what happened. My mom and dad split. My mom went to go stay with my grandparents in the high desert. And from there, I was supposed to start high school there. She ended up having a stroke right before, I guess something happened with my mom and my grandmother, and she moved with her sister. Then she had the stroke and she was in the hospital. And that's when I started going to school in the IE in Rialto, right? And you know, my mom was in the hospital for like a couple months. I used to hate going to see her because the way she was looking, it didn't look normal, you know. And then she was slurring every time she talked, but I knew it was important for me to go for her to have hope, you know, and fight. But after my sophomore year, my mom, you know, like I said, she was back to normal. Sophomore year, after my sophomore year, my junior year, and my senior year, we lived in a couple different apartments. Um, you know, we lived in the worst parts. We lived in the Cedar Brooks and in Rialto, which was like the toughest apartments at the time. And then we lived like right behind Isa Howard before they fixed it all up, and that was the hood too. I can't remember what they called that part of Rialto. Then we ended up moving to Highland after I graduated, and you know, just growing up, and I'm just 18 now. Like I'm 18, you know, senior year, and well, I'm 19. I'm sorry, I graduated, right? So I'm 19, and I didn't, you know, the reason why I didn't want to go to school straight after, I never took my SATs. I wished it was something that I was able to do, take my SATs, go to college, live the dorm life. I always dreamed of doing that, you know. Um, I just been through so much. But as soon as I graduated, I was not even thinking about going to school at that time. I was going to take that. I was one of those people, you know what, I'll take a year off and then I'll go to junior college and then, you know, get a degree in something. That didn't plan out like that. You know, after I graduated, I'm just living in sin, having sex. Um, that's when that demon started really getting control of me, because I forgot to say, like, in my junior year and senior year, I did move to Portland, and it was all about sex when I moved to Portland. I was having sex with different females, um, and I don't know if I guess that's normal or not normal. I don't know. You know, I'm 19, living in Portland. I came back down to graduate and out here with my friends, and then once I graduated, then we moved to Highland, and me and my mom was just clashing. Because I'm grown. You know, she want me to do chores. I do them when I want to. And we was just clashing. She was still on drugs. I had a little job working at Kmart. Um, but, I end up moving from her, and then I went to go stay with my homeboy. I had another job making good money at this warehouse, but I was only there for a couple months. You know, she couldn't really take care of me, and I wasn't really pitching in. My mind was not there to say, oh, let me give my best friend's mom $300 off my check, in a month or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Um, Grateful for her, grateful for my best friend. But when you're that young, you don't really think about paying rent, or because she never said you can come stay with us, but you gotta pay me rent. Like, she just let me stay there because my best friend asked, you know. And but I eventually had to go move back with my mom. And then once I moved back with my mom, that's when we really started going back and forth with each other, disrespectfulness of me, and her doing what she's doing with the drugs and stuff like that. I just got tired, and I'm gonna end this video, but I got tired, and I called up my other cousin. He lived in LA, and that's where things really started going downhill, and that's when the enemy really had a chokehold on me. So I'll continue that maybe later on, but there we go.